I am the famous American. A few weeks ago, I made a couple videos being inspired by the movie Arrival, and the concept that ultimately, that if you know multiple languages and you know them well, if you're perfectly bilingual or trilingual, ultimately you have the keys to more than one culture and more than one perspective in the human experience. That as an adult, if I were to learn a full language 100%, I would just now be able to open myself to a new culture, because even if you speak the language, it's a matter of, but when you grew up that way, you have the keys to multiple communities, multiple dimensions ultimately. I think that's fascinating, but let's talk about English. Let's talk about it as a language. Something I wonder, and all of you are smarter than I am, so that's why I want to make this video to hear what you have to say about it. Ultimately, is when we look at the success of the English language, I'm not here to say it's the best language, and I'm not here to say that it's the most widely spoken language either. I understand that Mandarin Chinese is the more people speak that language than the other language, whatever. But my point is, though, in many parts of the world, to be successful financially and get a decent education, you're going to have to speak English. That's why I ended up in Thailand in college those 2 summers teaching English to elementary students, because English is that important to them if they're going to be successful in their careers. So it's somewhat of a universal language, as far as even if you don't speak it very well, you need to be able to speak it to some degree for business reasons, if for no other reason. It's smart to do that. And it's not like English is an easy language to learn. Granted, I have an English degree, and I know that it's actually one of the more complicated languages to learn. Why? Well, this is the #1 reason our professors told us, is because it's not its own language. It's a borrowed language. It is Latin, it is Greek, it is English, but English itself has other languages in it. It's such a mix. So you've got all these many languages, put them in a blender, we call it English, and then especially modern English now, we've got even more foreign words that we've accepted. Spanish, Italian, whatever it is, we've mixed them all. We call it English, but it's more of just a big mix, is all it is. So therefore, it complicates things. We have our 5 vowels, and they make probably 23 different sounds whenever it comes down to it. And any vowel in the English language can ultimately make the sound of any other vowel. Like, for example, women. Okay, so women has an O in it. Women. Women. But then if it's woman, then it's woman. Woman, women, and it's an O either way. Tough. That's tough. We got the G and the H, and somehow that's supposed to be an F sound. There's so many rules that make no sense, and that's just simple phonetics. That's not even sayings that we have, like, I have to go there. That doesn't make sense. I have what? I have to? How does that even make sense? So our language is very confusing, very inconsistent. But ultimately, I wonder if part of the success of the English language isn't simply about England owning different countries throughout the world. Not simply that, but ultimately, the English language becomes relatable because there's a part of so many other languages in it. English is not so exclusive. It's fairly inclusive for a language, and perhaps fairly inclusive languages might actually draw in more people who speak that language. I don't know, though. Is that true? Can you expand on this? What other languages like English that are such a mix of other languages, what would compare to English? And therefore, is it more accessible because of that? Whereas other languages, like Mandarin Chinese, for example, maybe the most people speak that more than any other language, but does that really relate to many other languages outside of China? Your comments belong right here.